business in particular were sceptics of Brexit, and the CBI, not least, particularly sort of noisy advocates in the past of the European Union and pretty sceptical around the whole process of disentangling ourselves from it. Boris Johnson will say that he gets that, but he offers what he sees as certainty with his Brexit deal, although there will be plenty still to sort out, even if the UK is to leave in the next couple of months. He'll also talk about business rates, a perennial bugbear for many in business, amongst the highest amongst a group of rich countries here in England. He'll offer a review in England if he's re-elected as Prime Minister. For Labour, they're going to talk about apprenticeships and climate change, huge number of additional apprenticeships that Labour say that they would want if they are in government. And for the Lib Dems, they will fully talk about Brexit again. So Jo Swinson will say, look, plenty of you in this hall didn't like Brexit, and if we were elected as a majority, we would cancel it. We would revoke Article 50. So lots of other things to talk about at the conference today, but it'll all come back to Brexit.
OK. Good to tee us up early in the morning for that. Thank you very much, Chris. See you later on.
Sorry to interrupt. I was just looking at our correspondent. A standoff between pro-democracy activists and police is continuing at university in Hong Kong following a night of fierce clashes.
At least 40 protesters have been arrested there, with a number still occupying parts of the Polytechnic University.
Let's get more from our Asia correspondent Robin Brandt, who's there for us now. Very good morning to you. And we can see this devastation behind you. And just tell us what's the latest, what's been going on.
Well, the very latest is in the last half an hour or so, quite a lot of drama on this side of the building, actually. A small group of protesters emerged, making a run for it. They came from the left under this footbridge here, making their way through or over some of the barricades that they or their friends have been building in the past few days along this street, and in the end, over the green barriers there. They were pursued by police, lots of tear gas, but that's the first sign we've seen, certainly in the last 4 or 5 hours, of some of the 500 or so protesters who are holed up inside that university building trying to make a break for it. There were several arrests, but it looks like most of them appear to have got away. For now, though, the bulk remain inside. They've been there all night. Some attempted to get out, others have been content, apparently, to stay inside. But I have to say, it looks like the police are being more assertive or so in the last hour. They've certainly retaken that bridge over there, the one in the distance. That's where we were last night, one of the main areas of confrontation between police and protesters. And now police have moved along there. They're moving closer to the university building.
OK, well, listen, Robin, and we'll be back with you later in the next hour or so. But thank you very much for the update. Thank you.
Large parts of central Venice are once again underwater as another exceptionally high tide flooded the city for the third time in less than a week. Venice has suffered its worst series of high tides since 1872, when official statistics were first produced. Strong winds have made the flooding worse there, but the mayor of Venice has blamed it as part of climate change.
The stars were out on a white carpet last night as the hotly anticipated Frozen sequel made its European premiere at London's South Bank.
Elsa, Anna and Olaf were joined by the likes of Ida Menzel and Josh Gad, who voiced characters from the film. Families eagerly awaiting the sequel don't have too long to wait now. It's in cinemas this Friday.
Traditionally, with fairy tales, a Prince Charming comes in to save the day, right? True love's kiss is embodied by a man saving a woman. This was a movie that broke that norm. The first Frozen was really about the love between two sisters. Sibling love is really powerful. It speaks to so many of us.
Thankfully, our kids have moved on a little bit.
Oh, no!
No, they're just...
You can't move on from... What do you mean? Because there's
just
song.
Age-wise. I mean, there are so many of those songs from that first film rattling around my head. We were listening to it incessantly in the car.
Sorry. Is there more than one?
Oh, there's so many.
I only know the one.
I genuinely don't think you need to move on. I'm very excited about that.
Oh, you've got a family outing planned, have you?
And we have teenagers in our house.
Well, there you go. As we said, it speaks to many people of all ages and ranges. There you go.
You know, embrace everything.
Have you got a full outfit to go in as well?
Not yet. I wasn't going to go.
Love it. Right, yeah, unexpected news at 6:10 in the morning. Are you as much of a Frozen fan as Louise
It
is?
didn't really, it didn't enter my orbit at all, Frozen. Boys in my house, so, no girls. We're not allowed to watch it at all.
To judge them.
The girls
Not
not out
that
with.
boys can't watch Frozen. Can I just say that right now? Yeah.
First controversy of the morning.
Oh, dear me. Anyway, England have won a football match. Morning.
Carry on.
Shall I? Harry Kane's doing really rather well. Morning, everyone. England rounded off their Euro 2020 qualification. There was a record attendance in the Women's Super League as more than 38,000 fans watched the North London derby between Tottenham and Arsenal yesterday. Stefanos Tsitsipas won the season-ending ATP Tour Finals. The 21-year-old from Greece is the youngest winner in almost 20 years. He takes home £2 million prize money, and guess what? We're going to be talking to him just after 8:30 here on Breakfast. And Lewis Hamilton was stripped of third place at the Brazilian Grand Prix. The Formula One world champion crashed into Alex Albon during the penultimate lap. He said in his interviews afterwards that was basically his own fault. So quite a lot of exciting stuff to look forward to on the programme this morning.
There is.
And also
Eddie Jones.
Eddie Jones.
Do we mention Shirley Ballas as well?
Shirley. Is Shirley on?
Yeah, she's on later.
Coming on with a new beau as well.
Marvellous.
Talk about obviously talk about Blackpool at the weekend, but also some of the online grief that she's been getting, particularly this series. I think she's even had death threats, hasn't she, on occasions,
People
because of
are
judging
mean.
decisions that she's made.
Yeah.
And so talking about that, and also I think her plan is to sort of try and face it front on from next series. She says she's going to sort of publish some of the stuff she gets sent from next year. I think.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether it's better to just ignore them.
Well, we shall ask her later.
I think they're both tactics, aren't they? That
Yes.
are probably good. Here's Carol with a look at this morning's weather. How's it going, Carol? Morning.
Good morning, everyone. Well, Lou, first thing this morning, it is a cold start. We've also got some fog, particularly across central and southern Scotland and Cumbria. That could well take its time to clear. And across parts of Glasgow, for example, you might find it doesn't clear at all, and that will hold the temperatures down. But for many, it's going to be a sunny day and mainly dry. Now, high pressures dominating our weather at the moment. Low pressures to the east, taking any remnants of any rain from the southeast this morning. And we won't see the effects of the next set of fronts really bringing in rain until tomorrow. So a cold start. Don't forget the fog across central southern Scotland and also Cumbria. Most of that lifting. And then, as you can see, there'll be a fair bit of sunshine. Now, there's the risk of ice on untreated surfaces across parts of the Highlands and also the Northern Isles this morning. Here too, some showers. One or two of those showers coming in the northerly wind down at that east coast. And there's quite a noticeable gusty wind across parts of East Anglia and the southeast this morning. But whichever way you look at it, it is going to feel cold. Temperatures for some not even breaking freezing, particularly if you are under that fog. Now, as we head on through the evening and overnight, we still have this brisk wind. Still, we're looking at a quiet night weather-wise, a lot of clear skies, and the temperature is going to fall away, except for in the west, where there will be more cloud with the approaching weather front. So these are the kind of temperatures you can expect in towns and cities, but we could hit -10 in some of the sheltered glens, so a widespread frost. Anything lower than -8.1 means it will be the coldest night of this autumn so far. Temperatures 3s, though, across Northern Ireland and the southwest of England. That's higher than the rest of the UK, but it still will feel cold if you're stepping out first thing tomorrow. So talking of tomorrow, low pressure still towards the east. We've got this set of weather fronts coming our way, but further east across the UK, we're still clinging on to that area of high pressure. That means after a cold and frosty start, any patchy mist and fog should lift. There'll be more of a breeze tomorrow. And again, a lot of dry weather, a lot of sunshine. However, in the west, we do have this weather front coming in, and as well as thickening cloud, it's going to bring in some rain. So not as cold once again in the west, but still pretty cold as we move further east. Even into the evening, we still are looking at some clear skies, so a chilly night out towards the west. You can see the advancement of our weather front, taking that rain just a little bit further west too. So from Tuesday into Wednesday, it starts to make a bit more progress eastwards, but the far east of the UK still hanging on to drier conditions with some brightness. There's the weather front moving in during the course of Wednesday with the cloud building ahead of it, but you can see where we're expecting some slithers of sunshine. The wind changes direction as well, and temperatures a little bit higher, 8 to about 10. Lou and Dan, we won't know ourselves.
No, we won't, will we? Thank you very much, Carol.
Let's have a little look at some of the papers and news websites this morning. Sally and Sean are going to take us inside as well. But in terms of the front pages, some slightly different takes on the fallout from the Prince Andrew interview over the weekend. The Times reporting that the Duke of York is defiant and stands by his decision to speak out over his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein, describing the interview, though, as a car crash.
The Sun thinks the interview was disastrous, but claims Prince Andrew told the Queen that it was a great success. The paper says he was in a buoyant mood as he attended church with his mother yesterday.
Front page of the Mail, the only one to report that the Duke regrets not expressing sympathy for the victims in the interview. This is after the backlash at what some perceive was a lack of remorse in that 1 hour special.
And the Huffington Post runs an opinion piece which reckons Prince Andrew's bad PR has made a terrible situation even worse. Should we have a look at some of the other stories as well?
Yeah, that's
Emily
something we'll
Matrix
be
has done it also in the Times. If you want to read more about the sort of background behind the interview as well, she's talked about that in the Times newspaper as well.
Yeah, which is fascinating because it had been months
many
in the planning,
months of negotiations.
Yeah, and it all came together, I think, on the Monday before the Saturday night. Sean, what you got over there?
Morning. Big day for business. Heard from Chris Mason a little earlier, didn't we? It's in a lot of the papers. The Financial Times is one of those picking up just all the policies coming out from the various parties today ahead of the CBI conference. We're going to be speaking to the chair, the chief executive there a little bit later. Labour going to be pledging shares for workers, and then PM to woo business with levy breaks worth £1 billion. Lots of promises. Lib Dems talking lots about Brexit. So we'll be getting into that with Dame Carolyn Fairburn in about half an hour's time. Less crucial news, but maybe equally important in the world of farming. The world's fastest tractor has been...
Whoa, slow that sucker down.
I know. 135 miles an hour.
Wow.
Can you believe that? You'd need that parachute, I imagine, is a pretty...
You wouldn't be stuck behind that on the country road, then, would you?
Well, I don't know. If it's going 135 miles an hour, it might be a little bit more refreshing. I'm not sure what the plans are for it in the real world, but an adapted version is going to be sold around the world. So a bit of decent marketing for the tractor industry.
Cut down the ploughing time with that, couldn't you?
You'd need a good handbrake, though, wouldn't you?
What have you got, Sal?
We're talking to Eddie Jones later, as we've already mentioned, but there's a great extract from his book in the Times this morning saying he went to see Pep Guardiola when he was in Germany. He spent some time with him coaching when he was at Bayern Munich, and he was embarrassed by how advanced Pep was in his coaching in terms of, compared to what he was doing. And he really liked the idea of that kind of Spanish football, short passing, really high tempo. He watched him train with the players. One particular session, he says, lasted only for 30 minutes, but when they came off, the players were mentally and physically drained. So we're going to talk to Eddie Jones a bit like that about, his coaching inspirations. But here in The Guardian is my sort of football coach. Great interview here with the former Newcastle defender, Philippe Albert, talking about how Kevin Keegan would buy them all fish and chips on the bus on the way home from matches when they're playing for Newcastle.
That's what you need sometimes.
That's how to make friends, isn't it?
Exactly. Fish and chips, and I also think quite a few cans of fizzy pop and other stuff too.
Eddie Jones also talks a little bit in the book about sort of social media and about comments and criticism, and he chooses not to read either good or bad.
It's so wise.
Yeah,
because neither of them are actually making any sense
correct.
to me. Yeah.
Interesting.
If it's people who don't know you, even if they're saying good stuff, it's not relevant. Also, the people who are saying bad stuff, it's not relevant.
The truth is normally in the middle.
Somewhere in between, isn't it?
What have you got there?
Supermarkets are going to, the plastic packets that we can't recycle. All supermarket giants are set to ditch black plastic from their own label food and drinks ranges within 3 months. They've been looking at that. Apparently, every single one is going to do it. The move follows the lead set by Morrison's, who did this last week. So, hooray!
How do you all get on with your neighbours?
Very well.
Yeah.
OK, well, fewer people are getting on with their neighbours as they tend to be more quiet and courteous than friendly, according to this new report. A study from Neighbourhood Watch and the Co-op says that only 1 in 5 homeowners and renters said they actually talk to their neighbours and get on better with them than they did 5 years ago.
Oh, that's sad.
But also, in the same thingy, it says that Neighbour of the Year... What did I call it?
Thingy.
Yeah, same article. Neighbour of the Year, Nilesh Chauhan from Headingley in Leeds, organised a welcome to the streets for all new residents and has curry nights... which has raised £10,000 for various charities, bringing students and families together. And on the subject of neighbours, this is not... Anyway, squirty, rotten scoundrels. Have a look at this lot. So this is a bit of an issue, a boundary dispute, which has been going on in Llandudno. And a 72-year-old couple have been spraying their neighbours with a hose pipe because they'd washed the patio. Some of the rubbish in the patio had gone into the next door garden. They'd thrown it back. So they've been sort of hosing each other. It's gone to court and all sorts.
They weren't going for that award.
No, I'm not sure they're going to win Neighbour of the Year a lot. But
I think if I arrived in a new road and there was a welcome to the road party, I might be slightly worried.
Would you? If it was a curry party, I'm in.
Yeah, true.
Well, on last night, in fact, neighbour from up the road, our dog escaped.
No, Winnie.
We didn't know. We didn't know where she was. She came round and said, "I think this is your Winnie," and brought the dog back.
That's nice.
Yeah. The dog looked very... You know that face that dogs do when they know they've been a bit naughty? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm very, very sorry.
I'm ashamed of myself.
I was chasing a squirrel.
Thanks, Sophie. We'll see you a little bit later. Thanks so much.
21 minutes past 6. Now, we've talked about some of the main front pages this morning. As we've seen, Prince Andrew features on most of those today, with many reporting on calls for him to apologise and now assist inquiries into Jeffrey Epstein in the United States.
Well, let's speak to royal biographer Catherine Mayer, also president of the Women's Equality Party, though she's not standing in next month's general election. She joins us now from Buckingham Palace. Morning to you. Thanks very much for joining us. I imagine you, like many millions of others, watched this interview. What do you make of it?
It's a terrible interview. It was a very bad misjudgment on his part, but obviously that's a misjudgment compounding the original misjudgment of his association with Epstein.
And we understand, because we're, more information coming about it all the time, that it may have gone... I mean, there would have been a lot of negotiations, not just with the BBC, but within the royal family as well. Do you think other people would have been counselling him against it?
I do. I've heard the reports this morning that Emily Maitlis believes the Queen sanctioned it. That is possible, but I don't think that the Queen would have understood in that case exactly what was planned or how ill-conceived this was, and I'm quite surprised by that. I suspect also that this reflects the sort of shifting power structures within the palaces at the moment, that there's quite a transition going on, and this is a lot less of a sort of tight communications platform than they would have had before, and as I say, I mean, massively ill-conceived, but it's massively ill-conceived really because of one central reason, which is that Prince Andrew, instead of using this platform to express contrition and to validate the experiences of the victims of Epstein, instead presented himself as the victim and expressed no contrition at all.
Would that have made a difference if he had expressed more remorse, in your view?
I think that it was a bad idea from a communications point of view anyway. But what's happened is that we know that there are at least 23 victims of Epstein who have been denied justice because of his death. There may be many more. And in actually giving an interview that, instead of talking about that, instead of making that clear, just instead revealed this culture of impunity, of this reflex to defend, of a series of very poor and strange excuses. It couldn't really be worse. It's really hard to think of anything more damaging that could have been done as an interview, either to those victims or, if, from the point of view of what he was trying to achieve. He certainly has not salvaged his reputation here. He's made it a lot worse, I would say.
There are a lot of people, particularly in the United States, asking for him to answer questions under oath. What are the chances of that happening?
I don't know the answer to that, but what I do think is that he has... there is one unintentional good effect of this interview, which is, I mentioned the culture of impunity. It's actually laid bare some of the mechanisms. None of this could have happened if it weren't for other people who enabled it, if it were not, Epstein, the Epsteins of the world, or indeed the other people, other men who have, for example, been revealed by Me Too. They require not just their own malevolence, but a series of enablers and people who lend them credibility, whether intentionally or not. And so, you know, if the only good thing at this point in time that Prince Andrew could do is actually to do anything he can to give those victims justice. But what this also helps is it helps us to understand what the mechanisms are and perhaps to look at more permanent and thoroughgoing ways to attack the kind of systems that are supporting this.
Can I ask you, you're a biographer of Prince Charles and you know, will know him well. How will he react to what's happened?
I do know Andrew.
Oh, right, OK.
Oh, yes, I know. Well, I know both of them.
Well, go on then.
I travelled in China with Prince Andrew when he was UK trade envoy, and I do also know his brother. They have certain similarities. All the Queen's children were brought up in this very strange bubble where they were, on the one hand, told how special they were, and on the other hand, told that they couldn't make any decisions for themselves, that they couldn't ever do real jobs. So they were both sort of indulged and deprived of any agency. And in the case of Charles and Anne, they had a much more austere upbringing. Then Andrew and Edward were much more indulged generally, and you can certainly see that.
To press you, but how will Prince Charles react to what's happened and to that interview, do you think?
So what I was going to say, so I think Prince Charles is going to be furious about this because this has done very serious damage to the monarchy. You know, the only way monarchy works is if people don't start asking what's it for. And I mean, if you think about what a royal like Prince Andrew is for, who has no constitutional role as such, the only thing can be to promote ideals, values and organisations, and I don't mean the Pizza Express in Woking. So, you know, what he has done is draw attention to that kind of question of what's the monarchy for, and not given any kind of good answers and just given damaging ones.
Catherine Mayer, our royal biographer, thank you very much for your time this morning here on BBC Breakfast. Thank you.
And if you didn't see it over the weekend, the BBC Newsnight special, Prince Andrew and the Epstein Scandal, is available on the iPlayer. It's a full hour of very interesting television.
It absolutely is. You can go and find it there. 27 minutes past 6, time now to get the news, travel and the weather wherever you're watching.
Hello there, very good morning to you. Support is being offered for those affected by a huge fire at student flats in Bolton on Friday. More than 200 people are in temporary accommodation after the blaze. The fire service is still at the scene and will assess when students can go back and collect belongings. The local community has donated clothes and other goods to help out.
I think it's the community, I think it's the staff, I think they've all pulled together. You know, Bolton is very much a family. This is a very, very difficult and trying time for those students, and I think it's amazing how the staff have pulled together to support them.
A new mental health service for Greater Manchester's 100,000 students is being trialled. It's been set up by the Universities of Manchester, Salford, Bolton, MMU and the Royal Northern College of Music together with the NHS. There'll be a main clinic on Manchester's Oxford Road with satellite centres in Bolton and Salford. They'll be staffed by psychiatrists, therapists and mental health nurses. An inquest is due to start today into the death of a teenager who died after being detained by security staff at the Liverpool One shopping centre. Mzee Mohammed was 18. He died in hospital after being taken unwell in police custody 3 years ago. A Tranmere Rovers fan has been questioned over alleged homophobic abuse of the away goalkeeper and referee at the match against Wycombe yesterday. It follows complaints made to the police by Wycombe's goalie Ryan Alsop and referee John Busby. Anfield hosted its first ever Women's Super League match with more than 23,000 fans watching the Merseyside derby yesterday between Liverpool and Everton. A record-breaking attendance for a women's game. Everton women won the match 1-0. In the other WSL games, Manchester City women beat West Ham 5-0 and Manchester United lost 1-0 to top of the table Chelsea. A Thanksgiving service will be held tonight in Blackburn for all those who helped with the BBC's DIY SOS transformation of a homeless refuge. The Night Safe shelter at St Silas Church was finally unveiled last week. It followed a renovation by volunteers from all over the country. Now let's move on to the weather. For the start of the week is Rich Davis.
Hello, good morning. It should be a dry and bright day today. Quite a bit of cloud around to begin with some mist and fog about too. But after that clears, we should have quite a bit of sunshine around as we go through this morning and into this afternoon. So staying largely dry and clear, as I say, with sunny spells. We could see temperatures get up to 8 or 9, but it's still going to be feeling pretty chilly, and it will be turning pretty cold as we go into tonight as well. We'll hold on to the dry and clear conditions through the first part of this evening. Maybe just a little bit of cloud beginning to form by first thing tomorrow morning. Looks like it could be quite a misty and foggy start to the day, but look at that, those temperatures way below freezing. It is going to be a cold and frosty start to things through tomorrow as well. So a chilly day on the cards. There's still going to be some bright spells around as we make our way through the morning and into the afternoon. Just a little bit cloudier, highs of 6.
Now, there's a lane closed on the M62 eastbound between Birchwood and Eccles. That's because of a breakdown at the moment. And also, there are replacement buses instead of Northern Rail trains between Southport and Wigan and Southport and Parbold. That's because of engineering works. That's it from me for now. Back with more in half an hour. Bye-bye.
Hello, welcome back. Good morning. You're watching Breakfast with Dan and Louise.
Just gone 6:30. It's Monday morning. Bring you all the latest news, sport, weather, all that sort of stuff coming up. But also on the programme, we've got the England coach, Eddie Jones, who's going to be here for his first TV interview about his new book. He'll give us the inside story on the World Cup campaign and also talk to us about his battle with depression over the years.
We're going to be live outside Buckingham Palace to discuss the continuing controversy over Prince Andrew's interview about his links to the convicted sex offender, Jeffrey Epstein.
And Strictly Shirley Ballas, head judge, will be here to discuss the online abuse and death threats she's received following a number of controversial judging decisions on the show. I've also got Alfie Boe, who's going to be here later as well.
So much to talk about. Excellent.
We are crammed.
Good morning. A summary of today's main stories from BBC News. Prince Andrew is facing calls to apologise to the victims of Jeffrey Epstein for his close association with the convicted sex offender.
A lawyer who represented Epstein's alleged victims has told Breakfast that the Duke showed an astonishing lack of empathy in his BBC interview over the weekend. Epstein took his own life while awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges.
I think that if a member of the royal family who clearly was friendly with a convicted sex offender is going to go on television, then the first words out of his mouth should be, "I'm sorry, and if there's anything I can do to assist these victims in any way, shape and form, I would want to do that."
Boris Johnson, Jeremy Corbyn and Jo Swinson will each address business leaders later as they hope to win support ahead of next month's general election. The Prime Minister is expected to announce plans to cut business rates, while Labour are offering hundreds of thousands of new apprenticeships.
Police are surrounding a Hong Kong university campus after a fiery overnight standoff with hundreds of protesters inside. Dozens of demonstrators tried to leave after sunrise but turned back as police fired tear gas and then rubber bullets. Earlier, police tried to enter Polytechnic University but were met with police bombs and bricks. It's the latest violence in weeks of anti-government protests in the region.
And the stars were out for a white carpet last night as the hotly anticipated Frozen sequel made its European premiere at London's South Bank.
You can't wait, can you? Elsa, Anna and Olaf were joined by some of the stars of The Voices, Ida Menzel and Josh Gad. They are some of the characters in the film. Josh is Olaf. If you do, are we going to play? Yes, have a listen because you can tell this is Olaf.
Traditionally, with fairy tales, a Prince Charming comes in to save the day, right? True love's kiss is embodied by a man saving a woman. This was a movie that broke that norm. The first Frozen was really about the love between two sisters. Sibling love is really powerful. It speaks to so many of us.
It's in cinemas from Friday, and Louise is going fully dressed up. I can't believe, of all the things, I wouldn't have expected you to be a gigantic Frozen fan, but there you go.
I love movies.
Oh, I do as well.
Yeah, I know, but Frozen is one of, good. Well, I'll be there next weekend.
Cinematic highlight of the year for Louise Minchin.
Oh, I love it.
I did the whole of Bridget Jones this weekend, all three in the weekend.
Back to back?
Wow.
Back to back.
Whoa.
I know, I don't know
That's
what's going
impressive.
on. Anyway.
What was that punishment for?
No, it was brilliant. I forgot how good they were. They were so good.
Nothing else on. No.
That's a good. Are there three of them? Are there three? Yeah. Right. Okay. So, if you've just switched on your telly, Eddie Jones is going to be here in an hour's time. So,
he is. We cannot wait to talk to him.
Really interesting. Got plenty of time with him as well to talk about all sorts of things over the years.
Yeah. His career, his family, of course, the World Cup. Plenty of other stuff too. Talking about incredible people, Harry Kane, did you know Harry Kane yesterday became the first player for any country to score in every single Euro qualification game?
Wow.
It's quite a thing, isn't it?
It's a bit of history, isn't it?
It is, yeah. England had, of course, already qualified for the European Championships. They put in a hugely impressive display in Kosovo last night. They won 4-0, with manager Gareth Southgate saying they're progressing better than they did in the run-up to the last World Cup, as Jane Dougal now reports.
Harmony between fans, one less thing for Gareth Southgate to worry about. Raheem Sterling back in the side after the manager dropped him.
Nicely tucked away.
Kosovo have a slim chance via the playoffs, but for them this match was about history. Looking back over the relationship between the two countries, but also making history, because this was the first time they had ever hosted England. Jane Dougal, BBC News, Pristina.
There was a record-breaking attendance in the Women's Super League yesterday. More than 38,000 fans were at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium for the North London derby between Spurs and Arsenal. It's the second time the league's attendance record has been broken this season. Home fans left disappointed, though. Kim Little and Viviane Miedema scored in a 2-0 win for Arsenal. Stefanos Tsitsipas has won the year-ending ATP Tour Finals in London. He came from a set down to beat Dominic Thiem in a deciding set tie-break. The 21-year-old from Greece is the youngest winner of the event in almost 20 years, and he takes home a couple of £1 million in prize money too.
It's unbelievable having such an army behind me while I'm on the court. They give me so much energy, they give me belief that I can achieve the things that I want to achieve on the court. They motivate me, they just give me so much energy in general, and I just love that.
And the man himself, Stefanos Tsitsipas, will be with us on breakfast just after 8:30 this morning. Now, Lewis Hamilton took the blame for a crash at the Brazilian Grand Prix, which saw him stripped of third place. The world champion was trying to pass Red Bull's Alex Albon for second place on the penultimate lap when they had a bump. He was demoted to 7th by stewards for causing the crash. Max Verstappen won the race of Red Bull, while the Ferraris crashed into each other, taking both drivers out of the Grand Prix. Busy morning for guests. Really interested to know what everyone would like us to ask Eddie Jones. Is there anything in particular? Interested to know what rugby coaches want to ask him.
Good idea.
What young players want to ask him.
Yes.
So do get in touch.
He does talk about in his book, doesn't he, about how long it took him to get over, because obviously he was the Australia coach when England won the World Cup in 2003, and getting over that took him an awful long time, didn't it?
It broke him for a while, didn't it? Yeah. But he said to himself, the thing I love about it is he said to himself at that time, I will be back coaching at this level again.
Yeah. I think he felt that he should have resigned after that, but he stayed, didn't he? And then where they went on an awful run, and eventually he left. Yeah.
What time is he in an hour?
7:30. BBC Breakfast at bbc.co.uk if you want to email in some questions, and you can find us on social media this morning as well.
6:39, Jeremy Corbyn will set out Labour's plans to train a further 80,000 apprentices a year in his speech to business leaders later on today.
This comes amid criticism of the party's renationalisation proposals if it were to win the general election. Let's speak now to the Labour Party's Barry Gardiner. Good morning, Mr Gardiner. Nice to have you on the programme. We're going to be speaking to the boss of the CBI, Carolyn Fairbairn, very shortly on this show, but she was talking yesterday saying we have real concern that Labour are going to crack the foundations of our economy. Now, that is not ideal, is it, with the election 3.5 weeks away? Why are you laughing?
Well, I'm sure that Jeremy will be able to reassure Caroline later on today when he speaks to the CBI. But look, we've been listening very carefully to businesses, and one of the things that they've been telling us is that they're fed up with the failing infrastructure in this country. And I think most people know that, you know, whether it's the trains or whether it's the broadband, whether it's the waiting lists in the public services like the health service, things aren't working as they should. And that's why the investment proposals that we have to fix that infrastructure, to make sure that people can get on their trains and get to work in the morning without having to pay a fortune, or actually for businesses cut off in rural areas without access to decent broadband, that they can get their goods to market through that broadband. These are things that are really going to transform business in this country, and I think business will welcome that.
You say you've been speaking to businesses. She says she's been speaking to businesses as well. And on the point particularly of those proposals of yours to partially nationalise BT, she said that she's spoken to quite a few businesses who are wondering, are we next? And the point that she makes is that sort of uncertainty will freeze investment.
Well, look, let me say this is the biggest programme of investment in our infrastructure that we've seen in about 40 years. So it's not going to freeze investment. This is about investment in that infrastructure.
Let me answer the question concerns.
Sure. No, let me take them on quite head on. Because, you know, if we were sitting here 250 years ago, when there were tolls on all of our roads, you know, people would have thought, gosh, how strange to think that you can provide roads for free. Well, what happened was some bright economist came along and said, look, if you take the tolls away, people will be able to do more trade. If they do more trade, there'll be more wealth. If there's more wealth, then there's more jobs and there's more tax base in order to pay for those roads. That's what we're saying about broadband. It's actually seeing that this is the needs of business. If you provide the infrastructure free of charge, what you then do is you create much greater wealth to be able to afford that.
OK, but the business infrastructure is very different to how it was 250 years ago. And again,
that's the point. That's why we need this investment.
But that's also my point, because I want to come back to another thing that the boss of the CBI said. She said, valuing none of the contribution that business makes shuts out investment. Now, that is not a good image for the Labour Party, is it?
Look, can I just say that is absolutely true, and that's why we do value the contribution that business makes. And that's why we've been working very closely with business on the apprenticeships, this climate apprenticeship scheme that you mentioned, because we believe that stopping climate change is a huge opportunity to create jobs and wealth in this country. And the scheme, the apprenticeship levy that the government have had has been very poor, and that's what business have been telling us. It's not flexible enough. It doesn't work for them. And so what we're doing is we're increasing that flexibility. We're enabling them to use those funds to pass down the supply chain, because at the moment it only applies to big business. And this will enable their partners, the small businesses in their supply chain, to benefit from this as well. And of course, we'll then be saying a quarter of that fund, which at the moment they're saying is not benefiting their business, we'll be taking that to make sure that they can then spend that on the climate jobs of the future. Young people coming out of school who can then learn how to build wind farms, who can then learn how to put solar panels on our roofs and efficiently heat our homes. These are the jobs of the future, and that's what we want to do. We value the contribution that business make. We want to ensure that we work with business in achieving the best results for the money that they're already committed to putting in.
OK, and I know Jeremy Corbyn will be speaking a lot more about those apprenticeships later today. Can I ask you one other issue which dominates all the papers this morning? Did you watch the Prince Andrew interview over the weekend?
I haven't seen the interview myself, but I'm aware of some of what's been reported about it.
Do you think it was ill-judged, him doing it?
Look, my thoughts are for the victims of this and Jeffrey Epstein. I think the issues here are about men in power abusing their power, abusing their privilege, and taking advantage of vulnerable young people. This is the real heart of this.
Do you think Prince Andrew should have mentioned that in the interview?
Well, I think he, according to some of the reports this morning, he believes that he should have mentioned it in that interview. And I can't imagine how, anybody who's looking at this situation, as what happened with Epstein and the crimes that he was actually found guilty of, as well as the ones that he died through committing suicide before he could be found, to be guilty of. I think most of us will think that this is a vile situation in which it's the people who were exploited that we should be focusing on first.
Do you think that Prince Andrew should speak to US authorities as well?
That's a matter for the authorities, and it's a matter for him, obviously, to judge. If he is wanting to be open, as he would appear to be from the interview, then I can't see any reason why he wouldn't wish to do that. I'm sure he would want to make sure that justice is served in the best way possible.
Barry Gardner, good to talk to you. Thank you very much for your time this morning.
So we counted the days. I think it's 24 days to go until Britain goes to the polls. We'll be hearing from each of the major parties this morning. We'll be joined by Sam Gyimah from the Liberal Democrats about 7:10. Then at 20 past, we'll speak to the Conservatives' Andrew Leadsom. In the next few minutes as well, we are going to hear from the CBI.
How on earth are we going to fit all this into it?
I don't know.
There's so many
We
guests.
will. It's the beauty of breakfast.
That's it, exactly. What time is it? 6:45 this morning. Let's find out what the giant squirrel's got to say about it all. Morning.
Morning.
Hope you were talking about him, Dan. Good morning, everybody. This morning it's a cold start. The temperature at the moment in Tulloch Bridge in the Highlands is -8. So we've got frost. There's also some fog to watch out for as well. But this week, although there's some rain in the forecast, it's not going to be as heavy as it was yesterday. There will be sunny spells. Again, at times, it's going to be fairly breezy. But by the end of the week, it's not going to be as cold. So I'm going to show you that. To start with today, you can see, and tomorrow, we've got blues. They're usurped by the yellows, indicating the higher temperatures coming our way from the west. And then eventually by the end of the week, look how there are more yellows across most of the chart. So temperatures by then will be roughly where they should be at this stage in November, or a little bit higher. First thing this morning, we've got to lose the rain from the southeast. That will clear. We've got fog this morning across central and southern Scotland and Cumbria. That will be slow to lift. Some of it will linger throughout the course of the day. And we've got a peppering of showers across the north and the east, with the risk of ice across the Northern Highlands and the Northern Isles. Now, temperatures ranging from 2 degrees, it could be freezing if you're stuck in an area with fog all day, to about 10 as we come further south. But the other thing we have in the forecast is a weather front approaching. So through this evening and overnight, we'll start to see the cloud building in from the west. But clear skies for much of the rest of the UK means it is going to be a cold night across the board, except for in the west where we've got that cloud. Now, these temperatures represent what you can expect in towns and cities. In rural areas, of course, they'll be lower, and we could, in some sheltered glens in Scotland, get as low as -10. Coldest night of this autumn so far was last week in Dalwhinnie at -8.1. Well, we're already at -8 now, so tomorrow will be even colder. As we head from Tuesday evening into Wednesday, you can see still some clear skies. There'll be some patchy mist and fog forming. And then we've got this weather front coming in, bringing in more rain. So we start off on a cold note, a frosty one, with that patchy mist and fog around Merseyside, Cheshire, for example. The cloud thickening across Northern Ireland, Western Scotland, and also western parts of Wales. And then here comes the rain in from the west. As a result, we've got 10s and 11s in the west, but still in the sunshine further east, it is going to be that bit cooler. Any patchy mist and fog, though, shouldn't last too long, especially so as we go from Tuesday into Wednesday with the breeze picking up. So talking of such things, we're clinging onto high pressure by the skin of our teeth in the east on Wednesday, but we've got an array of weather fronts coming in from the west. So that does mean we'll see thicker cloud and some rain. A change in wind direction means we're going to start to see some of our temperatures recover. We're looking at about 6 to 10, but they continue to recover by the end of the week. Lou and Dan.
Well, thank you very much. We're going to be talking about cold temperatures now, actually, Carol.
You're very excited about this, aren't you? An ice white carpet was rolled out in London last night for the European premiere of Frozen 2, which, of course, is the sequel to the hit Disney film.
Yeah. As well as being a box office success, the first Frozen film proved a massive hit for merchandising. And as John Maguire has been finding out, it is a very popular theme at children's birthday parties.
Find who is calling to you. They may have answers.
I'm going with you. Anna? No. Excuse me, I climbed the North Mountain, survived a frozen heart, and saved you from my ex-boyfriend, so, you know, I'm coming.
They're back. 6 years after the first Frozen film, the sisters are embarking on a new adventure. And if you thought the general election was exciting, well, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Let's see your dancing moves, everybody!
Because the frenzy is reaching fever pitch with the release of Disney's sequel, which for Anna and Elsa means back-to-back birthday parties.
I mean, it's princess galore, I think, and yes, that being the most popular by far.
I think it came out 3 years ago. Six years ago, and it's just that she's the most popular by far.
Everybody absolutely loves Frozen, and Bella parties are so popular with them all the time. It's a great film. Everyone loves it. I love it. I'm so excited.
Plates, cups, napkins, table covers, piñatas, balloons, cutouts, party bag fillers. Yeah, everything mums could need for the party.
Forget Black Friday. For this company in Manchester, everything's blue, and business is ballooning as orders for Frozen party merchandise magic their way to buyers.
The last few weeks it's really ramped up, so we're now seeing that Frozen's the biggest party theme, so twice as big as the next biggest kids party theme. It's accounting for about 50% of our girls party sales at the moment as well, so yeah, absolutely huge.
The snow glows white on the mountain tonight, not a footprint to be seen.
The first movie smashed records, made almost £1 billion at the box office and won Oscars, as parents around the world were treated, it says here, to an endless rendition of an instant classic, which, back at Clementine's birthday party in Richmond, is taking centre stage.
Let it go, let it go. I wander the winged sky.
How often is that song in your house?
Between 10 and 20 times a day. It's pretty popular, so I know the words. I may not join in, but I know the words.
And here I'll stay. Let the storm rage on. Ready to get those frozen.
So, prepare for the planet to be frozen once more. John Maguire, BBC News, Richmond.
I'm so glad that we've now put that song in everybody's head.
It's as bad as Baby Shark, that.
For the day. Ahead of the release of the new film, we'd love to hear from you if you've got pictures of Elsa's, Anna's and Olaf's in your family. I expect you do. Send them. I really wish that I had younger children now, because we could have had those parties. I've missed out on those.
No, Louise, no.
Missed out.
I went to a Christmas party a few years ago, 400 kids there, and every single one of the kids was dressed up as one of the characters from Frozen. It was absolute carnage.
Anyway, in celebration of Frozen, to bring me more joy,
yes.
Send them to bbcbreakfast@bbc.co.uk. Tweet using the hashtag BBC Breakfast, and we'll show you some of the best pictures, hopefully, if you send them in later in the programme.
We are planning a family trip to number 2, though, because there are members of the family who do want to go and see it. So I'm ready. I'm ready for it.
I expect I'll probably go more than once. Anyway, at 6:53, Boris Johnson, Jeremy Corbyn, Jo Swinson will all be making their big election pitches to business leaders today, and Sean is looking at what they're going to say.
Yeah, morning everybody. It's big, isn't it? Big vote out there, the business vote. And this is the annual gathering of all the top business leaders across Britain. They gather in London today, closely watched most years anyway, but of course even more so now, right in the middle of a general election campaign. And the view of the members of the Confederation of British Industry and the CBI itself, it matters, because the organisation speaks for nearly 200,000 businesses across the UK, and between them, they employ around 7 million people. So that's pretty much a third of all employees that work in the private sector. So what do they want to hear from these political parties and the leaders today? Well, we've got Dame Carolyn Fairbairn on the line, who joins us from the conference, Director General of the CBI. Good morning to you. So you've got them lined up today, telling you what they want to do for business. But what is it that you want to hear from them?
Well, yes, as you say, important day here. We'll have all three joining us on stage. And there are some really important things that business need to hear. First of all, we do want to hear about Brexit, how the uncertainty is going to be ended, and crucially, how we are going to avoid no deal next year, because that doesn't come off the table, even if there is a new deal done in December. So that is the first thing. It really matters for jobs and investment. We also want to hear about ways that the economy is going to be made more competitive. So looking at ways that business rates may be looked at, the biggest property taxes in Europe, apprenticeship levy, how we get on with building the big infrastructure projects of our day, like HS2 and Heathrow, and then turn our attention to really addressing the problems people care about, like regional inequality, skill building, our entire workforce for a new digital age. So a lot of issues that matter, a lot of things that we want to hear today. way that will help business fire on all cylinders.
You mentioned a lot of policies there. If you take business rates as one example, the Conservative Party announced a review of business rates back in 2015. Sure. Not a lot, there weren't many drastic changes made. We've heard retailers particularly saying they need change. Why do you think what politicians say today will be any different to what they've said in the past?
Yeah, it really does have to be different on something like business rates because it's holding back the competitiveness of our economy, and that means jobs. The high street is suffering. I think what's different today is that we are coming out of a really challenging decade into a new decade. We've had Brexit uncertainty hanging over our heads, and this is an opportunity to get our economy going again. And we would like to see a much bigger partnership between business and government that tackles these issues and is more radical. And maybe sometimes in the past it's been words. Well, today we're saying that it needs to be action.
Do you mind how much is borrowed to get that money going into infrastructure investment around the UK? Can we afford to do all of the things? You mentioned HS2 and Heathrow and many other infrastructure projects across the UK that lots of parties are talking about. Can we do it?
I believe that we can invest more as long as we bring private sector in alongside public sector, which is why it's so important to get the right policies. There are some challenges out there like nationalisation, which will potentially dampen investment. But we do have to count up the spending pledges. Money is not endless, but I think if you get private sector and public sector working on something like HS2, on the Heathrow expansion, which is almost entirely private money, then I think we can do a huge amount. And it's not just the big projects, it's also how we connect the northern cities, Manchester and Leeds, how we get the regional commuting distances feeling much shorter. I believe we can do it, but it is about private and public working together.
Then Carolyn Fairbairn, thank you from the CBI conference there. So we will wait and see exactly what the reaction is from the businesses today, who will be hearing all those three-party leaders tell them what they think they should be doing in the next government.
Excellent. I'm sure they will listen carefully. Thanks very much, Sean.
Plenty more on the way, including Eddie Jones, the England rugby coach. He's going to be here in the next half hour.
He is. Time now to get the news, travel and the weather wherever you are. Hello there. Very good morning to you. Support's being offered to those affected by a huge fire at student flats in Bolton on Friday. More than 200 people are in temporary accommodation after the blaze. The fire service is still at the scene and will assess when students can go back and collect belongings. The local community has donated clothes and other goods to help out.
The first thing I thought of was all of my stuff is gone, but the main thing is that everyone got out alive. That's 220 people and everyone managed to get out safely. We're just lucky for that. Very lucky. A new mental health service for Greater Manchester's 100,000 students is being trialled. It's been set up by the Universities of Manchester, Salford, Bolton, MMU and the Royal Northern College of Music, together with the NHS. There'll be a main clinic on Manchester's Oxford Road with satellite centres in Bolton and Salford. An inquest is due to start today into the death of a teenager who died after being detained by security staff at the Liverpool One shopping centre. Mzee Mohammed was 18. He died in hospital after being taken unwell in police custody 3 years ago. A Tranmere Rovers fan's been questioned over alleged homophobic abuse of the away goalkeeper and referee at the match against Wycombe yesterday. It follows complaints made to the police by Wycombe's goalie, Ryan Alsop, and referee John Busby. Anfield hosted its first ever Women's Super League match with more than 23,000 fans watching the Merseyside derby between Liverpool and Everton, a record-breaking attendance for a women's game. Everton women won the match 1-0.
Definitely rose to the occasion. We've got one of the youngest Women's Super League squads. You wouldn't think that with the way that they performed, because they weren't overwhelmed with the occasion. They played the game within it and they used the crowd to spur them on. I was really, really proud with the way that we conducted ourselves through the moments of the game.
In the other WSL games, Manchester City women beat West Ham 5-0 and Manchester United lost 1-0 to top of the table Chelsea. Now time for the weather for the start of the week. Here's Rich Davis.
Hello, good morning. It should be a dry and bright day today. Quite a bit of cloud around to begin with some mist and fog about too. But after that clears, we should have quite a bit of sunshine around as we go through this morning and into this afternoon. So staying largely dry and clear, as I say, with sunny spells. We could see temperatures get up to 8 or 9, but it's still going to be feeling pretty chilly and it will be turning pretty cold as we go into tonight as well. We'll hold on to the dry and clear conditions through the first part of this evening. Maybe just a little bit of cloud beginning to form by first thing tomorrow morning. Looks like it could be quite a misty and foggy start to the day, but look at that, those temperatures way below freezing. It is going to be a cold and frosty start to things through tomorrow as well. So a chilly day on the cards. There's still going to be some bright spells around as we make our way through the morning and into the afternoon. Just a little bit cloudier, highs of 6.
Now, there are delays there on the M62 westbound at Winwick in Cheshire. That's because of an accident. Elsewhere, queues on the M56 eastbound Bowden to Hale. You can see the headlights there. That's because of a breakdown. And replacement buses running on some Northern Rail Southport services because of engineering work this morning. That's it for now. Back with more for you in half an hour. Bye-bye. Hello, very good morning and welcome to Breakfast with Dan Walker and Louise Minchin.
The headlines for you at just gone 7 o'clock. Prince Andrew faces calls to apologise to the victims of sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
A night of fiery clashes in Hong Kong as protesters try to stop police storming a university campus.
Pitching for the business vote, from apprenticeships to Brexit, party leaders look to persuade Britain's bosses that they are best placed to run the country.
England wrap up their Euro 2020 qualifiers with a dominant 4-0 win over Kosovo. They're now one of the top seeds for next summer's tournament. And he guided England to their first Rugby World Cup final for 12 years. So what next for this man, Eddie Jones? He's here in half an hour.
Good morning. It's a cold and a frosty start. We've got some patchy mist and fog around. And when the cloud breaks for most of us today, it's going to be dry with lengthy sunny spells, but it will feel chilly. I'll have more in 15 minutes.
It's Monday, the 18th of November. Prince Andrew is facing calls this morning to apologise to the victims of Jeffrey Epstein for his close association with the convicted sex offender.
A lawyer who represented Epstein's alleged victims has told Breakfast that the Duke showed an astonishing lack of empathy in his BBC interview at the weekend. Jeffrey Epstein took his own life while awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges. Here's Andy Moore.
We've come to Buckingham Palace in highly unusual circumstances.
It's the interview that continues to dominate the national conversation. People close to Prince Andrew told the BBC he stood by his decision to do it. They said he wanted to address the issues involved with what they called honesty and humility. But it's hard to find anyone who thinks it was a success.
I think that if a member of the royal family who clearly was friendly with a convicted sex offender is going to go on television, then the first words out of his mouth should be, "I'm sorry, and if there's anything I can do to assist these victims in any way, shape and form, I would want to do that."
But today's Daily Mail claims Andrew has expressed in private the sympathy for Epstein's victims that he didn't state in public. The Sun takes a very different line, claiming the Prince had told the Queen his interview had been a great success. Whatever the angle, the interview continues to dominate the headlines. There's also analysis of Andrew's admission that he had met Epstein's girlfriend Ghislaine Maxwell this year, even though she'd been accused of helping Epstein groom his victims.
If there are questions that Ghislaine has to answer, that's her problem. I'm afraid I'm not in a position to be able to comment one way or the other.
When was your last contact with her?
It was earlier this year, funny enough, in the summer, in the spring, summer.
About what?
She was here doing some rally.
Ghislaine Maxwell has always denied the accusations against her. This was her 6 years ago. Elusive then, she hasn't been seen in public for many months, and no one seems to know where she is now. Andy Moore, BBC News.
Well, Andy's outside Buckingham Palace for us this morning. Morning, Andy. It really is a story that is not going anywhere. It's all over the front page of the papers again this morning.
That's right, and there are growing claims from the lawyers of the victims in America that Prince Andrew should really be speaking to the FBI and giving evidence under oath. We saw in that report there a brief interview with Spencer Kuvin, the American lawyer who represents 3 women. And he said that for Prince Andrew to speak to the media really was the easy way out. He said that Prince Andrew has shown no sympathy for possibly hundreds of young victims of Jeffrey Epstein. He also said that even though Epstein is dead, there's an ongoing investigation into his co-conspirators. He didn't name who they were, but he hoped there would be more prosecutions. Meanwhile, there's been debate about whether the Queen actually gave permission for this interview to go ahead or not. And Emily Maitlis, who obviously conducted the interview, she said at one stage Prince Andrew said he would do the interview if it was signed off by somebody higher up. It obviously was, and Emily Maitlis was obviously under the impression that the Queen herself had given permission for the interview to go ahead.
Andy, thank you, and that's something which we will be looking at again during the course of the programme this morning. So do let us know what you think about anything we're covering today. You can get in contact with us via the usual means.
Boris Johnson, Jeremy Corbyn and Jo Swinson will each address business leaders later as they hope to win support ahead of next month's general election.
The Prime Minister is expected to announce plans to cut business rates. Labour are offering hundreds of thousands of new apprenticeships. We've spoken to Barry Gardner about that already. In the last half hour, the boss of the CBI has told this programme that business in Britain needs certainty.
We do want to hear about Brexit, how the uncertainty is going to be ended, and crucially how we are going to avoid no deal next year, because that doesn't come off the table even if there is a new deal done in December. So that is the first thing. It really matters for jobs and investment. We also want to hear about ways that the economy is going to be made more competitive. So looking at ways that business rates may be looked at, the biggest property taxes in Europe, apprenticeship levy, how we get on with building the big infrastructure projects of our day like HS2 and Heathrow.
Let's pick up some of those thoughts with our political correspondent, Chris Mason. So today, all eyes on business, really. All three leaders, the main parties at least, are going to the CBI, and they'll have to kind of, I suppose, tell us what they're going to do.
Yeah, morning to you, Louise. That's exactly right. I think you could detect there from Dame Caroline, couldn't you? A dash of scepticism from business about the promises that might have been dropped into their ears at previous conferences of the CBI, the business organisation that she leads. They are regular attenders, the party political leaders, but very rarely in the context of a general election campaign. Now, clearly, Brexit is the dominating theme. Boris Johnson will say he will acknowledge that many people in the room at the CBI conference were sceptics about Brexit and remain sceptics. But his argument is that he can at least deliver certainty, and it is the duty of politicians to deliver on the result. There is plenty of scepticism, to use that oft-used word again, around whether or not the Prime Minister can deliver the long-term deal around Brexit in the time frame of 1 year that he has set himself. Jeremy Corbyn has talked about the need for far more apprenticeships, and we'll hope that that is well received in front of the audience. But it's quite striking, as we've been reflecting on breakfast in the last 15 minutes or so, that the CBI was saying just yesterday that they feared that Labour could crack the foundations of the economy. The Liberal Democrats will also be there. Jo Swinson turning up this afternoon. Her pitch will be directly about Brexit and this Lib Dem idea that if there is a Lib Dem majority government, they would scrap Brexit entirely, which plenty in the room, I suspect, would be in favour of, but also rather conscious that it's probably rather unlikely that she's going to sweep into Downing Street next month.
Chris Mason, thank you very much.
A standoff between pro-democracy activists and police is continuing at a university in Hong Kong. This is after a night of fierce clashes.
At least 40 protesters have been arrested, with a number still occupying parts of the Polytechnic University.
Our Asia correspondent Robin Brandt is there for us now. And Robin, you can bring us the very latest that we know. Good morning.
Yes, I mean, in the last hour or so, we've seen a small group of protesters try and make a run for it, basically. They suddenly appeared on the highway below us. I think there's probably around 100 trying to climb through or over the barricades that they or their friends have been building over the last few days. And then they moved along the highway here, quickly pursued by police who were firing pretty large number of tear gas rounds. I think most got away, although some were arrested. So signs maybe that the protesters are trying to make a run for it after at least 24 hours holed up inside. We've seen police as well, riot police, retake one of the bridges over there. They blocked all the bridges that are in or out of the university campus, but some signs that perhaps they're trying to move even closer. But essentially what they're doing doing is blockading this building with about 500 protesters inside. Now, just quickly, why are these universities so important? I've been at 2 universities in the past week where protesters have been occupying the building. I think, firstly, they see them as a place of sanctuary, but also they are of strategic significance because this one is by the entrance to a tunnel. The one we were at earlier in the week had a bridge over a highway, and the protesters are using this to block roads, to stop traffic, to block tunnels. They're trying to have as much impact as they can in their campaign on infrastructure here in Hong Kong.
OK, thank you very much for that detail. It's Robin Brant speaking to us this morning from Hong Kong.
Several people have been shot dead while watching a football game at a house in California. Police were called to the scene yesterday after at least 2 people entered the backyard of a home around 200 miles north of Los Angeles and then opened fire. Local media are reporting that 4 people were killed, a number of others injured.
The stars were out in force last night on a white carpet as the hotly anticipated Frozen sequel made its European premiere. This was on London's South Bank.
Elsa, Anna and Olaf were joined by the likes of Ida Menzel and Josh Gad, who voiced the characters in the film. Our families awaiting the sequel don't have long to wait now. It's going to hit UK cinemas this Friday.
Traditionally, with fairy tales, a Prince Charming comes in to save the day, right? True love's kiss is embodied by a man saving a woman. This was a movie that broke that norm. The first Frozen was really about the love between 2 sisters. Sibling love is really powerful. It speaks to so many of us.
There you go. I'm sure the soundtrack will be rattling around many heads for
Already
years
today.
to come. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I'm really looking forward to it.
I know you are. 11 minutes past 7. Thank you for being with us on this Monday morning. Now, the Liberal Democrats will tell industry leaders that they are the natural party for business later. This is as they roll out their plans for Britain remaining in the EU if they win next month's election.
Let's get more on that, what that might mean in practice from one of the party's candidates, Sam Gyimah. Morning to you. Thanks very much indeed for joining us.
Good morning.
I know that Jo Swinson is going to tell business leaders that the Liberal Democrats are the natural party of business, and we've heard from the CBI on breakfast this morning saying one of the things they want to do is get on with big projects such as Heathrow and HS2. But Lib Dems don't even support the expansion of Heathrow.
Well, I listened to the interview that Caroline Fairbairn from the CBI gave, and I think the biggest thing she said is that businesses want certainty to be able to invest. And the big issue with the Prime Minister's pitch so far is that there is no certainty. It rests on 2 false claims. Once that we can have our cake and eat it if we leave in any future trade deal, so we can have all the benefits of being in the EU while leaving and having a loose relationship. The other is that he says he can get it done quickly. But we all know that we face no deal at the end of next year, and that is what Nigel Farage wants from the Conservative Party. So the central question here in terms of supporting businesses, we know that overwhelmingly the current deal we have with the EU is the best for business, and the Liberal Democrats are the party of Remain. That is what makes us the party of business, but that means also the party of job creation in this country.
And of course, so many people will think, well, actually, we voted to leave, so you may be on the side of business, but perhaps not on the side of many, many millions.
Well, we are on the side of the many millions because we care about jobs, whereas Boris Johnson is throwing the economic cards up in the air and he's being dishonest with the country. If we've got to be honest with the country about the trade-offs we face in leaving the EU, it will not be done quickly. People are exhausted about this.
Can I just ask you about your policies, if that's all right? Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about, I asked you originally, didn't I, about Heathrow. Business said very specifically, the CBI said to us that they want to see they want that to go ahead. What are you going to do as the Liberal Democrats? You're against that.
We are against the expansion of Heathrow mainly because of the local community grounds, but that is not what makes us anti-business. If you throw the economic cards up in the air and you have a hard Brexit government or a hard left government, that completely rips up the foundations of business. So you might focus on Heathrow, but what we face in this election, a hard Brexit or a hard left government, is far more fundamental than where we stand on Heathrow.
Can I also ask you about other things they were talking about as well? I mean,
Sure.
Personally on Heathrow, because have you changed your mind now that you're a Liberal Democrat?
No, I haven't changed my mind. I did vote, is what you're going to say, for expansion of Heathrow when I was a Conservative with the Conservative whip. Now, I don't disagree with the party policy now that says, look, let's go with the grain of local opinion and understand what the environmental impact is, the noise impact, and how you deal with it. I think that is a natural position to have. But in terms of our positive policies for business, for example, we are going to be scrapping business rates. Lots of businesses are concerned about business rates. We'll be replacing it with a land value tax. That would mean that in 92% of local authorities, businesses will be paying a lot less tax than they do. That is very good for the high street. That is very good for jobs and very good for the economy as a whole.
How do you make up for the money that you would lose then with business rates?
Well, that's what I said. We'll be replacing it with a commercial land value tax, and therefore you'd make it much more efficient for businesses.
Can I ask you also, so just really briefly, so you've changed your mind on Heathrow, but you go with what the Liberal Democrats are saying now. Let's talk about HS2 as well, because what price would you put on it? Because it seems that the price, we are not sure of the price at this point, and it seems to be going up and up. Would you put a kind of cap on it?
Well, let me tell you about HS2. If it could transform and will transform our transport network within the country. And if the Victorians had said the same thing about the train network in the 19th century, we wouldn't have it today. I think HS2 will benefit our economy hugely. Of course, public money has got to be managed very well. We've got to make sure that it delivers on time. But it's a kind of visionary project that we've got to do. But the big question of this election I keep coming to is none of this matters if we leave the EU with a hard Brexit or we pursue Jeremy Corbyn's destructive economic policy. Everything you're talking about in that context becomes a sideshow.
You're talking about certainty. How do you, as the Liberal Democrats, though, deliver? This is what businesses want. They want certainty, don't they? Have you got the numbers to deliver the certainty they're asking for?
Well, if you have a Remain Parliament, which you will have if you vote many Liberal Democrat MPs into Parliament, then we will be able to push for Remain, which is good for business. And then the only uncertainty in that context is how big the upside is. We have talked about the 50 billion Remain bonus, which we can invest in public services if we remain in the EU. The alternative, which is to deliver Brexit, is how damaging it is. All the Prime Minister will be doing is trying to negotiate a deal that is worse than our current deal in the hope that it is not that bad for business. So on our side, you have the uncertainty of how good it could get. On the other side, the uncertainty is how damaging it could be. I know which one I would prefer.
Well, we're talking to the Conservatives who will disagree with what you're saying in just a couple of moments, actually.
Can I just say one more thing there, which is that the Conservatives talk about their reputation for economic competence. Like every Chancellor, Conservative Chancellor, who's called out Boris Johnson, Ken Clarke and Philip Hammond have been fired from the party. That should tell you something.
Sam Gyimah, thank you very much for your time. And we're speaking to Andrea Leadsom in just a couple of moments, actually.
Just after we've got the weather, actually.
Right, on we go.
Look at that. Weather with Carol and then the Conservative Party to come. Good morning, Carol. You are the perfect political filler this morning, Carol.
Thanks, Dan, I think. Good morning, everybody. For some of us, it is a particularly cold start to the day. Tullach Bridge, temperature for you at the moment, -8. But generally, temperatures are not far off freezing. So there is frost around. We've also got some patchy mist and fog, some of which is actually quite dense. But as we go through this week, there will be some rain, but it's not going to be as heavy as it was last week. There will indeed be sunny spells. It's going to become quite breezy at times. And by the end of the week, we start to see temperatures recover. Now, at the moment and into Tuesday, we've got a lot of blues indicating lower temperatures. But watch how things start to rise as the weather front comes in around an area of low pressure on Wednesday, Thursday and into Friday. By Friday, most of the UK is under the yellow hue, indicating temperatures around average for this stage in November, or for some, above. So we've got some fog this morning across parts of the central and southern Scotland, Cumbria, for example. Some of that is dense and some of it will linger for much of the day. And if that happens, it will hold back the temperature. We've also got the risk of ice across the Highlands and the Northern Isles and some showers peppering the north and the east of the UK. Quite breezy conditions in the southeast as the rain that we currently have moves away, leaving us all with quite a lot of sunshine today, but a chilly feel to the day. Now, out towards the west, the cloud will slowly start to build later on. That's heralding the arrival of another weather front. But before it comes, under clear skies, the temperature is going to plummet, and it's going to be a colder night than the one that has just gone for most, except for where we've got the cloud cover in the west. Having said that, no heat wave here either. But these temperatures represent towns and cities. In sheltered glens, it's quite possible we could get as low as -10 tonight. So once again, we're looking at a widespread frost, some patchy mist and fog forming around Merseyside, Cheshire, the Midlands down into the southeast. Some of that will be freezing fog as well. But tomorrow, because there will be a bit more of a breeze, it should lift more readily than it's doing today. And tomorrow too, you can see the progress of our weather fronts coming in from the west, introducing initially the thicker cloud, and then we'll start to see the rain coming in. Not the southerly direction of the wind in the west, and we still have a northerly direction in the east. So if you are out and about in eastern areas, although there will be some sunshine, it will still feel rather nippy, whereas out towards the west, temperatures starting to recover. We're looking at between 10 and 12 degrees. By the time we get from Tuesday into Wednesday, so this is overnight Tuesday into Wednesday, again, our fronts are slowly progressing towards the east. So for some, it will be a nippy start where we've had the clear skies. You can see the cloud building ahead of our weather fronts, and then the weather fronts arrive from the west, introducing some rain, but not to all, largely Northern Ireland and southwest England. Temperatures again in western areas up to about 10, but temperatures generally starting to recover, even in the east. We're looking at 6 to 8, but it's later in the week that we see more of a recovery. Danny Lou.
Oh, Carol, thank you very much. I'm glad to hear it. Thank you.
Louise, Louise gave me a bit of a whack, Carol, because I called you political filler. I meant that in a nice way, Carol. You are far more important to the programme than that. You are essential to all that we do.
She's a
this
wonderful...
Is called backpedalling furiously, I think, Dan.
I couldn't be backpedalling quicker,
You couldn't
Carol.
really go very much faster, Carol. Anyway, don't worry, I've got your back, Carol, don't you worry. See you later.
She knows I love her. 22 minutes past 7. Good morning. What's your breakfast from the BBC?
The Conservatives will put business rates at the top of their agenda in a speech to industry leaders later today.
They are hoping that their promise to reduce the burden of tax amid a record high of high street stores closing could help them win support ahead of the election next month. Let's speak now to Andrea Leadsom from the Conservative Party. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming on. Can I talk to you about business rates, first of all? Because I was speaking to Sam Geemer of the Liberal Democrats about that. They've gone up faster than inflation since all the way back to 1990. The Conservatives have been in power since 2010. So if you're saying you're going to review business rates, why should businesses trust you to do that when you've been in power for 9 years?
Well, we've actually done quite a lot to already reduce business rates and scrap them altogether for some of the smallest businesses.
Yeah, but the overall amount of money remains relatively the same. And there was a review a few years ago, and Philip Hammond chose to almost leave it untouched.
Well, I think that it's quite clear that our economy has needed quite a lot of change in order to get our finances back on an even keel. But what we want to do in our next Parliament, should we win the election, is to significantly change business rates so that they really are helping some of the smallest businesses, some of our high streets. We have seen some dramatic change as more people are buying online, for example. So we do want to do more to help businesses with their business rates. But let's be clear, since 2010, there is almost 1.5 million more new businesses. So there has been a very good business environment. The Conservative Party will always back business. And this is a step to do still further to try and make sure that businesses can thrive.
OK, but if you are to cut business rates, analysis shows that local councils get about half of that money, which is essential in an already tight budget, essential money. So how do you plug that gap for local council money?
Well, that's exactly why we need to consult widely on it on far-reaching reform, is because exactly as you say, there are implications of what you do with business rates. But what we are quite clear about is that we want to help businesses with their ongoing costs. We've already reduced corporation taxes to their lowest rate in the G20. And there's more we can do with business rates, which we know from talking to business. For me as business secretary, I speak to the trade bodies all the time, and they've all said that their key target is that we change business rates.
We've been speaking to Carolyn Fairbairn from the CBI. I know she was speaking yesterday. We put her concerns that she mentioned about the Labour Party to Barry Gardiner. Some of the things she said about the Conservative Party criticised the Conservative stance on immigration because they say, as well as, and the quote is, of course, the brightest and the best, they need people like building site labourers. So how do you address those legitimate concerns from those who are running businesses in the UK?
Well, what we want is an immigration system that is fair to everyone, so not just to free movement from the EU, but fair to the world. And what that means is controlled immigration, and we have a consultation underway through the very highly regarded Professional Migration Advisory Committee that will give us its findings in January. That will set out exactly what the needs are in our economy. And again, for me as Business Secretary, I've already fed in the views of businesses that I've been able to gain from businesses large and small as to what they will need to be able to continue to thrive once we've left the European Union. But the really key thing here is businesses are saying they really need certainty. So what our immigration system and, of course, getting Brexit done will do for businesses is allow them to have the certainty that they need to plan to invest and to make hiring decisions. And so that's the kind of certainty that we want to give them.
We don't have too much time with you, but there are a few other items I wanted to mention to you this morning as well. I'm sure you saw that Hillary Clinton has been speaking about the report about Russian interference in British politics. She said it was shameful that it hasn't been published. When can we expect to see that?
Well, there is a process that is underway whereby any serious investigation by any parliamentary body always gets proper attention. It's important to check everything that's in it and to go through that process, and then that report will be published once that work is finalised.
So it's not being held back for the election?
No.
Definitely not?
Well, you know, it's not a report that I've seen or am familiar with, but as I say, there is a process to go through, and once that process is finished, then the report will be published.
The other thing I wanted to speak to you about from over the weekend is the Prince Andrew interview. Did you see that?
I didn't.
Do you think it was ill-advised for him to do that?
I'm not willing to comment on such an issue. I'm not familiar with it, and I don't think it's appropriate for me as a politician to be commenting on royal family issues.
I'm sorry, but you are. It is the front page of every single paper. Surely you have a view on something which is being greatly talked about and something which is important in terms of answering questions. Whether the big debate this morning is whether he should submit himself to be under oath for the US authorities.
It's really not something that is right that I should be commenting on. I'm sorry.
Well, Andrew Leadsom, it's good to talk to you, even the short answers. Thank you.
27 minutes past 7. I'm just looking at, there's so much coming out about but the impact of that interview with Prince Andrew, and also Emily Maitlis talking about the sort of negotiations that went into it. And she understands that it was the Queen who sort of finally gave the yes that they could go ahead with this interview. So very interesting, all the information coming out. And of course, from America as well. So many people there, lawyers of his alleged victims, or Jeffrey Epstein's alleged victims, saying that they would like Prince Andrew to go on oath.
Yeah, it's a huge debate, isn't it, as to whether it was... I mean, it was compelling television, that's no doubt, is it? But whether it was a wise decision for him to sit down and be interrogated in that way. And none of the questions were vetted beforehand. So Emily Maitlis was able to ask him whatever she wanted to ask him. And, obviously, virtually every answer has been sifted through word by word, and quite a few of those details being looked at as well. So
a very intense time in that interview. Prince Andrew taking so many different questions from Emily Maitlis, and I'm sure if you haven't seen it, some politicians haven't not seen it, you can go and watch it on BBC iPlayer.
It's interesting as well that some politicians like Andrew Leadsom, they're choosing not to comment on it at all. And earlier we spoke to Barry Gardiner from Labour Party, who also hadn't seen it, but quite clearly did have a view on what had been said and whether it should have been said at all. 29 minutes past 7. Time now to get the news, travel and the weather wherever you are.
Hello there, very good morning to you. Support's being offered to those affected by a huge fire at student flats in Bolton on Friday. More than 200 people are in temporary accommodation after the blaze. The fire service is still at the scene and will assess when students can go back and collect belongings. The local community has donated clothes and other goods to help out.
I think it's the community, I think it's the staff, I think they've all pulled together. You know, Bolton is very much a family. This is a very, very difficult and trying time for those students, and I think it's amazing how the staff have pulled together to support them.
A new mental health service for Greater Manchester's 100,000 students is being trialled. It's been set up by the Universities of Manchester, Salford, Bolton, MMU and the Royal Northern College of Music, together with the NHS. There'll be a main clinic on Manchester's Oxford Road with satellite centres in Bolton and Salford. An inquest is due to start today into the death of a teenager who died after being detained by security staff at the Liverpool One shopping centre. Mzee Mohammed was 18. He died in hospital after being taken unwell whilst in police custody 3 years ago. A Tranmere Rovers fan is being questioned over alleged homophobic abuse of the away goalkeeper and referee at the match against Wycombe yesterday. It follows complaints made to the police by Wycombe's goalie Ryan Alsop and referee John Busby. Anfield hosted its first ever Women's Super League match with more than 23,000 fans watching the Merseyside derby between Liverpool and Everton. A record-breaking attendance for a women's game. Everton women won the match 1-0.
Definitely rose to the occasion. We've got one of the youngest Women's Super League squads. You wouldn't think that with the way that they performed, because they weren't overwhelmed with the occasion. They played the game within it and they used the crowd to spur them on. I was really, really proud with the way that we conducted ourselves through the moments of the game.
In the other WSL games, Manchester City women beat West Ham 5-0 and Manchester United lost 1-0 to top of the table Chelsea. Right, it's time for the weather now. Here's Rich Davis.
Hello, good morning. It should be a dry and bright day today. Quite a bit of cloud around to begin with some mist and fog about too. But after that clears, we should have quite a bit of sunshine around as we go through this morning and into this afternoon. So staying largely dry and clear, as I say, with sunny spells. We could see temperatures get up to 8 or 9, but it's still going to be feeling pretty chilly and it will be turning pretty cold as we go into tonight as well. We'll hold on to the dry and clear conditions through the first part of this evening. Maybe just a little bit of cloud beginning to form by first thing tomorrow morning. Looks like it could be quite a misty and foggy start to the day, but look at that, those temperatures way below freezing. It is going to be a cold and frosty start to things through tomorrow as well. So a chilly day on the cards. There's still going to be some bright spells around as we make our way through the morning and into the afternoon. Just a little bit cloudier, highs of 6.
Quite a few travel problems around this morning. The Kingsway Wallasey tunnel's closed westbound at the moment because of a police incident. Elsewhere, delays on the M62 westbound at Winwick in Cheshire. That's because of an accident. And queues on the M56 eastbound Bowden through to Hale because of a breakdown blocking a lane there. That's it for now. I'll be back with the very latest for you in half an hour. Do join me then.
Morning, welcome back. You're watching Breakfast with Dan and Louise.
It's just gone 7:30. Let's bring you a summary of this morning's main stories from the BBC. And Prince Andrew is facing calls to apologise to the victims of Jeffrey Epstein for his close association with the convicted sex offender.
A lawyer who represented Epstein's alleged victims has told Breakfast that the Duke showed an astonishing lack of empathy in his BBC interview at the weekend. Jeffrey Epstein took his own life while awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges.
Boris Johnson, Jeremy Corbyn and Jo Swinson will each address business leaders later as they hope to win support ahead of next month's general election. The Prime Minister is expected to announce plans to cut business rates. Labour are offering hundreds of thousands of new apprenticeships.
Police are surrounding a Hong Kong university campus after a fiery overnight standoff with hundreds of protesters inside. Dozens of demonstrators tried to leave after sunrise but turned back as police fired tear gas and rubber bullets. Earlier, police tried to enter Polytechnic University but were met with petrol bombs and bricks. It is the latest violence in weeks of anti-government protests in the region.
Those are some of the main stories around, but we've got some panda news.
Panda news?
Yes, one of the most popular residents of Washington's National Zoo, but Bebe, I believe is how you say the name, the panda, is on his way home to China by private jet.
All pandas have to be returned to China when they're 4 years old for breeding purposes. I didn't know this. He'll be taken on the private plane. Keepers say he'll have lots of treats to keep him going on the 16-hour journey. And as you can see, he's had time for cake before he set off. I had no idea about that, but they had to be returned when they were 4.
Learn every day.
Yeah.
There you go. But a lot of bamboo on that plane, I would imagine. 7:34 is the time. Good morning. Carol's got the weather for us in a little bit later on this morning. But Sally's with us, along with a very special guest this morning, talking about... You do the introduction, Sally.
Shall I?
Yeah, go on.
Because we've thrown everything else out. Let's reflect on a brilliant, brilliant autumn for England in Japan. They thumped the All Blacks, of course, on their way to a first Rugby World Cup final in 12 years. It was masterminded by the man sitting opposite me now, Eddie Jones. Good morning.
Morning.
Lovely to see you.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome to Breakfast Television.
Thank you.
Well, we've just been having a little chat outside, and actually, you do actually occasionally watch us, don't you? You start your day early.
Yeah, most mornings I watch it. Yeah.
Do you?
Oh, well,
good way to start.
It's nice to have a viewer here.
What time do you tune in? You're 6 o'clock on the nose, man.
A little bit earlier.
Oh, right, OK.
Right. Before even we start, and then us.
Welcome home, Eddie. It's been a fair few months for you. Are you able to kind of put what happened into a little bit of context now? I know the final was hugely disappointing, but can you look back and reflect and think, actually, the whole tournament was incredible for England?
Well, I think the tournament was great for rugby, but from a coaching perspective, you know, the only thing you want to do is win, and we didn't win, so that's disappointing. But I think for England rugby, we put some pride and passion back into the game. You know, we hadn't made the playoffs in 2015, and in the World Cup, we put on a good performance.
I love I mean, you know, you've got this book out pretty quickly, haven't you? The whole last chapter deals with that. And you say, you know, there's always going to be one happy dressing room and the other sad, and you've been in both. How do you deal with it?
Well, I think as you get older, you learn to just move on. When you're younger, it tends to stay with you a bit longer. But the only thing you can assess is the performance of your team and how hard they put in. And you know, finals always a toss of the coin, and one team's going to get the edge and the other team's not, and we were the team that were just a little bit off.
And obviously you talk in the book as well about the 2003 final, when people remember that you were in charge of Australia. England won with the boot of Johnny Wilkinson, an incredibly tight game which went into extra time. In terms of the way that you recovered from that, would you describe that as depression yourself in the aftermath of that final?
I don't think I had depression, but I think it changed the way I looked at things. I think in hindsight, I was obsessed by winning after that, because you get so close to having the big prize in the world, and then you miss out and you get obsessed with winning rather than just enjoying what you do. Like, I'm lucky, you know, I get paid to do a fantastic job. I get to coach these great young men to play rugby at the highest level, so you've got to get the joy back in your coaching, and it took me a while to get that.
And how did that change your coaching? What did it change about you?
Just became more obsessed with winning. Like, anyone who coaches is obsessed with winning, and obsessed with getting the most out of your team. But the big difference is, I think you can take it to the absolute nth degree, where everything matters, where in the end, only the really big things matter.
So what were the little things that you would be obsessed with? When you say everything matters?
Just like untidiness at training, slovenliness at a meeting, those little things that really annoy me. And they just create an environment that in the end doesn't become positive.
What do you mean by slovenliness in a meeting?
Yeah, not sitting properly, not paying attention.
Sit up, you.
All of those sort of things. But in the end, you understand that those things don't matter, because everyone has their own way. And increasingly now with younger players, they're all very different the way they learn.
Having having coached against England for many years, what have you learned from now being head coach for a whole sort of World Cup cycle about England, the sort of infrastructure, the players and the fans as well?
Well, start with the players. They're fantastic. They work hard, have a great deal of pride about playing for their country, and it's supported by this fantastic infrastructure in England. The community rugby in England is unbelievable. Nowhere like the rest of the world. The RFU get a lot of criticism, but they do a great job in promoting community rugby, and that's in a lot of places. You go to a lot of the country areas, the club's the hub of the community, where everything happens around that rugby club. The media in England is tough,
Go on.
because they're at you the whole time. And the extremes in the media here are more so than anywhere in the world.
Really, even worse than, because I mean it's fierce in Australia as well, isn't it?
Fiercer than Australia, and it's like 20 times more in England.
Well, it's worse here.
Yeah, 100%.
Wow. So would you say then that your early years, growing up, playing, being a teacher, how did they prepare you for all of that, for all of the kind of the resilience that you need, and how you need that kind of very tough skin now? Being like in your book, you talk about saying you were quite a handy teacher. Actually, you were quite tough. What do you bring from those days to now?
Well, I think generally just being yourself. I think you've got to, in whatever occupation you've got to learn what the best version of yourself is, and then work out what your strengths are and keep working on your strengths, and don't worry about the noise outside the what's important. Any job you do, there's always noise about how you could do it better, what you're not doing well, and you've got to not get distracted by that noise. Now, sometimes you can learn from it, and sometimes you can't, but most of the times you can't.
There's a piece in your book you talk about not reading either, the critics or the people who are saying you're great. You just close down both.
Yeah, no, I don't read anything now. I refuse to read any newspaper. I don't read any sort of social media. I just let it go. And I got advice from a pretty handy coach along the way. I was lucky enough to meet Sir Alex Ferguson. That was one of the things he suggested.
Wow.
And sorry, because you were saying earlier about going to see Pep Guardiola as well. Is that and in your training you bring in quite a few different coaches and stars from other sports. Is that something you learnt from someone else, or something you've benefited from and thought, do you know what, I'm going to do more and more of this?
Yeah, I was lucky enough. I was coached by a guy called Bob Dwyer, who won the World Cup in '91. He was the most inquisitive, curious coach. He always wanted to know about the way other sports coach, about the way other people coached, and I probably took that on to a large degree. And there's always more to learn. There's always people who are better than you.
I want to play a clip of you, if that's all right, to you, because you have a reputation as a bit of a quite straight talker.
Yeah.
Should you have a look at some of the examples?
Right.
Here we go.
Maybe you guys have got to start reporting differently. Maybe you've got to stop reporting like you did 30 years ago. Come into the modern rugby. Join us. Join us. There's the invitation there to join us, guys. Rugby's changed. It's a 23-man game. We don't have any pressure, mate. Put up your hand if you think we can win. There you go. So no one thinks we can win. Well, someone has to ask them questions, mate, because the New Zealand media doesn't. You guys are just fans with keyboards.
Brilliant.
I love the way you do this. You take them on with this wonderful smile on your face.
We got to have a bit of fun. At the end of the day, we all got involved in sport because it was fun, and that's really important to keep that perspective.
I think you obviously, I know you say the media's brutal, but you, as you say, you enjoy that sort of side of it, and that the thrill of the chase and those huge games as well. When you look back on the World Cup final now, do you think, and I know you take responsibility for that defeat, do you think you made mistakes in selection? Would you change that, or is it a case of moving on now for you?
Look, if I look back in hindsight, the one thing I could have changed was selection, and I didn't. And it was a difficult decision because our team had done so well in the semi-final. You look at that game, I was talking to a group last night. If we didn't allow the one try which we gave them, we scored the 2 tries we could have scored. That's a 30-0 defeat of All Blacks. Now, that's almost a perfect game of rugby. And it's so hard then the next week to be at your best, because the opposition, South Africa, their coach is telling them, if you're not at your best, you're going to get hammered. So they got that little extra half a yard. And as much as you're trying to get your team in the right mental state, they're always that little bit off. And that's what happened in the final.
Eddie, you're due to stay with England till 2021, I think. Will you? And what's after that?
Oh, no, definitely stay for the next 2 years. Looking forward to building the most powerful team in the world.
Just really briefly, you haven't watched the game, have you? You said you haven't watched it back in the book. Will you ever?
At some stage, yeah. I've got it on my iPad, so at some stage
you have to be ready, do you, to watch?
Yeah.
Really quickly, Eddie, we're out of time. I've got one question which I've been dying to ask you. Your book, obviously, is dedicated to your family. How important have they been throughout your rugby journey? I'm thinking of your parents particularly.
And massively, big influences.
Oh, Eddie, it is lovely, lovely to meet you. And the book is
clearly
brilliant.
emotional.
It's a fantastic,
nice.
fantastic read. For anyone who likes rugby or sport or coaching, any of those things, it is a great, great read.
Thank you.
And there's some really good advice as well to take from it as well. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks very much.
Good to meet you.
It's lovely to see that families, amongst all the things that you've done, family is still so important, isn't it?
Very important.
Thank you, Eddie. Lovely to have you on the programme today.
Eddie's book, My Life and Rugby, is out on the 21st of November.
Yeah, and if you don't have to be an England fan to enjoy reading it. It's fascinating for all sorts of reasons.
Should we catch up on the weather? It's 7:45. Here's Carol.
Morning.
Good morning, everybody. Well, this week we are looking still at some spells of rain, but nothing as heavy as we saw last week. Sunny spells, becoming breezy and less cold by the end of the week. This morning it's a cold start. We've got frost around, temperatures have fallen to -8 in parts of the Highlands. But if I show you what we call an air mass chart, look at the colours. So from tomorrow and today, actually, we've got lots of blues in the charts indicating the cold feel of the weather. But then they're replaced by the milder yellows. And by the time we get to Thursday and Friday, those yellows are across most of the UK, indicating higher temperatures than we currently have. First thing this morning, though, there's some fog across parts of central and southern Scotland, also in through parts of Cumbria. Other parts of the UK have some fog as well, and some of this is dense. Some of it will be slow to lift, and some of it won't lift at all. There's also the risk of ice across the far north of Scotland and the Northern Isles. Here too, we've got a peppering of showers, as we have dotted across parts of the east coast of England. Not all of us will see them, and we'll say goodbye to this morning's rain from the southeast. Here too, in the southeast and East Anglia, it is quite breezy. But the cloud that we currently have breaks, and most of us today will have sunny spells. Chilly feel though, temperatures between 1 and 10 degrees, lower than that if you're stuck in the fog. Now, as we go through this evening and overnight, under those clear skies, temperatures will fall away quite quickly. We still have a northerly breeze, whereas out towards the west, we've got a southerly breeze, the cloud actually increasing, and then later we'll start to see some rain coming into the west of Northern Ireland. These temperatures indicate what you can expect in towns and cities, but in sheltered glens, we could get down as low as -10. So a widespread frost once again. There will be some patchy mist and fog forming, say, around Merseyside, Cheshire, the Midlands, down into the southeast. But with more of a breeze tomorrow, that should lift more readily than it's going to do today. So you can see the progression of these weather fronts coming in from the west. It's not particularly fast. High pressure still in charge further east. So it's eastern areas off to a cold start, a frosty start with that patchy mist and fog, giving way to some sunshine. Out towards the west, though, with the advance of the weather fronts, the cloud will build, and then we'll start to see the rain move across Northern Ireland. Now, with that and the southerly breeze, we're looking at temperatures between 10 and 12 in the west, but still feeling pretty chilly if you're in the east, despite the fact there will be some sunshine. So picking up that weather front through the course of Tuesday evening and into Wednesday, there it goes in no particular rush to get over towards the east. So eastern areas once again will start off on a nippy note with a touch of frost here and there, but the cloud building. Then in comes the rain across Northern Ireland, a few showers ahead of it in western Scotland. That gets in across the southwest of England as well. And temperature-wise, well, a little bit better, but still a lot to play for. Dan and Lou.
Thank you so much, Carol. We'll see you about 8:15. Thank you.
We're going to drop the C-bomb.
Christmas?
I know, it's time to talk about Christmas.
Again?
Do you have a Christmas card strategy? Because it's a big battle this time. You must have some sort of system. You're very organised, aren't you?
I'm not in charge of the system.
Oh,
that's the system.
Who's in charge of the system? Your husband? Oh, right, OK. Sean, we're getting some great secrets out here.
I know, I wasn't expecting that.
Morning.
There we go. It's important, though, isn't it? We're coming up to the time. If you're going to start writing them, it's going to be in the next few weeks. Morning, everybody. Before you write them, you've got to buy them as well, and it's pretty competitive out on the high street. And Clinton's, the big card seller on our high streets, has been feeling a lot of the pressures that some of the big name shops in other sectors that we've talked about recently have been suffering from. So Clinton's at the minute, we know, is in talks with its landlords about the rents on some of its properties, and that's something we've heard other stores have that conversation about, trying to ease the pressure on themselves, trying to reduce those costs as some of our high streets struggle a little bit. Is it because we're doing Christmas cards on the cheap now and cards all through the year? You know, sending a few WhatsApps and Facebook messages instead? Well, actually, we're still spending £1.7 billion on cards. And we actually buy more cards per person than any other country. And here as well, most of those cards, actually, we talk about online a lot, don't we? But 94% of them bought in physical shops. So makes you wonder, how can somewhere like Clinton's be struggling? Who's winning, who's losing? Well, we've got Amanda Ferguson with us, who's the Chief Executive of the Greeting Card Association. Morning to you, Amanda.
Good morning.
Big time of year for you.
Yes, very busy, absolutely.
So how is it, with all those big numbers that we've just seen, that you can get an established retailer on our high street selling cards struggling?
Well, as you said earlier, more cards are bought on the high street than anywhere else. But I think we all know that there are challenges for retailers these days with rents and rates. I don't know about Clinton specifically, but certainly they stock a wide range of cards, and we, the British, like sending cards. We like choosing them for specific people, and it's an important industry.
We do, and when you walk in and you see these pictures, you've got the array of cards everywhere, and something must be changing for us to have a retailer like Clinton struggle. Another retailer, we heard Card Factory last week doing well. What is it that you're seeing in the type of cards we're buying, the changing market out there? Are we going cheaper? Are we spending more, but maybe being a bit choosier on who we send cards to?
Well, interestingly, yes, we are. We are spending more on cards for close family and friends. And actually, the young people, 18 to 34-year-olds, are sending more cards than a generation ago, which is really interesting.
So what type of card? Are they? Is there a different market than a generation ago as well?
Well, I think we're seeing a growth in all occasion cards, we call them, general cards that you might send just to say, thinking of you, heard you had a bad day, or saw this funny picture and thought of you. Cards bring a really strong connection, and young people are on social media all the time. We all are, and actually, if you want to say something special to someone you really care about, you put in a bit of effort, and that's a card.
Was there a point when you see all those Facebook messages that sort of pop up around Christmas time, where you as an industry thought we might be really under threat here by online, because a lot of other parts of retail are massively under threat by online?
Well, the interesting thing about social media is actually it gives you more opportunities to send cards, because actually you'll know if someone's grandmother's ill or the dog's died or something that you might not on a day-to-day basis have known without social media. So it gives more occasion for card sending, and this is something we've certainly seen over the last few years. And as I say, the fact that young people are sending more cards is really exciting.
And when you see a lot more sort of bespoke cards now, maybe done by artists that aren't necessarily just the generic, Merry Christmas, Mum. There's a lot more range like that. Where does the money go? Is the money going to the retailer, or is it from those people that are behind the design on the cards?
Well, obviously, everybody there's a margin for everyone in it. There has to be for businesses to survive. But actually, we lead the world in card innovation and design in Britain, and it's a really major industry. We export our cards all over the world, so it's a big creative industry.
Is there a certain trend you're seeing this year that maybe you haven't seen in previous years?
Oh, I don't know. People are sending more cards from their pets, I think.
From their pets?
Something I'm guilty of as well. I always send my mother a card from the cat.
That might explain a bit of the boom if people are starting to do that. Amanda, thank you very much. Amanda Ferguson there from the Greeting Cards Association. There you go.
What, did you do a paw print or something on it, or anyway? Cards from pets.
Well, it's a bit of fun, isn't it? People love opening cards. It's that connection.
Do you know what? I think you're absolutely right. I still love opening cards, so thank you both very much. Thank you.
It's a fascinating industry, the card industry, because it's obviously booming, and yet
it seems to be rebelling against everything else. The stars of the new Frozen film turned out in force for the European premiere last night. We've been asking you, and thank you for these, to send in your pictures of your own Elsa's, Anna's and Olaf's. Should we have a look at them? Here we go.
This is Sally Burgess sent in this picture of her daughter, Laurie. Look, beautiful, Laurie. She's 5. She's dressed as Elsa.
Sharon has emailed this photo of Evie as Olaf. Look at that. That's so sweet.
Very good. Fran Geiler has sent her brother... Oh, no. This is her brother, Henry, who apparently he's not obsessed with Frozen. But here he is dressed as Olaf with his cats.
Here's another one. This is Ava sent in. Let's have a look. are by Graham Morris, clearly at one of those Frozen parties. Is it a Frozen party?
Yeah, that's a good business, you know, dressing up as... It was a few years ago, wasn't it? Dressing up as those two and going around singing to kids. Very good business idea, that one.
I'd love... Anyway, as you know, I'm well in. If you want to keep sending us photos of Frozen, please do. It comes out on Friday, in case you need to know.
Thank you for all your comments and tweets about the Eddie Jones interview. I don't think any of us expected him to get emotional at the end when he was talking about his family. I mean, that was a real surprise.
It was really rather lovely, actually, wasn't it? Such a lovely man, so charismatic and kind of understated. I wasn't expecting him to be like that. Shirley Ballas is going to be in here a little bit later as well. She's particularly talking about... She'll be talking about Blackpool, of course, and Strictly at the weekend. But also she's talking a little bit, isn't she, about the abuse and actually death threats that she's received after a few judging decisions, because she's the head judge, so she gets final decision, doesn't she?
Yeah.
And she said this year it's been worse than any other year so far on Strictly, the kind of abuse that she's had to deal with.
Maybe she should go down the Eddie Jones road.
The Eddie Jones, Alex Ferguson line. Don't look.
I think he blended together with our Frozen theme. He just said, let it go, didn't he?
Yeah, let
you
it
can
go.
Sing that along
I'm going to learn from Eddie.
Yeah.
Let it go.
News, travel and weather, wherever you are. Shirley Ballas on the way. Alfie Boe as well. Still plenty to come for you on BBC Breakfast between now and 9:15.
I'm sorry about leaving you with Let It Go the whole day. Time now to get the news, travel and weather, as you said, wherever you are. Hello there, very good morning to you. Counselling is being offered to those affected by a huge fire at student flats in Bolton. More than 200 people are in temporary accommodation after the blaze on Friday. The fire service is still at the scene and will assess when students can go back and collect belongings. The local community has donated clothes and other goods to help out.
You know, the first thing I thought of was all of my stuff is gone, but the main thing is that everyone got out alive. That's, 220 people and everyone managed to get out safely. We're just lucky for that. Very lucky. A new mental health service for Greater Manchester's 100,000 students is being tried out. It's been set up by the Universities of Manchester, Salford, Bolton, MMU and the Royal Northern College of Music, together with the NHS. There'll be a main clinic on Manchester's Oxford Road with satellite centres in Bolton and Salford. An inquest is due to start today into the death of a teenager who died after being detained by security staff at the Liverpool One shopping centre. Mzee Mohammed was 18. He died in hospital after being taken unwell whilst in police custody 3 years ago. A Tranmere Rovers fan's being questioned over alleged homophobic abuse of the away goalkeeper and referee at the match against Wycombe yesterday. It follows complaints made to the police by Wycombe's goalie Ryan Alsop and the referee John Busby. Anfield hosted its first ever Women's Super League match with more than 23,000 fans watching the Merseyside derby yesterday between Liverpool and Everton. That's a record-breaking attendance for a women's game. Everton women won the match 1-0.
Definitely rose to the occasion. We've got one of the youngest Women's Super League squads. You wouldn't think that with the way that they performed, because they weren't overwhelmed with the occasion. They played the game within it and they used the crowd to spur them on. I was really, really proud with the way that we conducted ourselves through the moments of the game.
In the other WSL games, Manchester City women beat West Ham 5-0 and Manchester United lost 1-0 to top-of-the-table Chelsea. Right, it's time for the weather now for the start of the week. Here's Rich Davis.
Hello, good morning. It should be a dry and bright day today. Quite a bit of cloud around to begin with some mist and fog about too. But after that clears, we should have quite a bit of sunshine around as we go through this morning and into this afternoon. So staying largely dry and clear, as I say, with sunny spells. We could see temperatures get up to 8 or 9, but it's still going to be feeling pretty chilly and it will be turning pretty cold as we go into tonight as well. We'll hold on to the dry and clear conditions through the first part of this evening. Maybe just a little bit of cloud beginning to form by first thing tomorrow morning. Looks like it could be quite a misty and foggy start to the day, but look at that, those temperatures way below freezing. It is going to be a cold and frosty start to things through tomorrow as well. So a chilly day on the cards. There's still going to be some bright spells around as we make our way through the morning and into the afternoon. Just a little bit cloudier. highs of 6.
Now, an important piece of travel news. Wallasey Tunnel is closed from Liverpool towards Wirral because of a police incident this morning. Elsewhere, delays on the M62 eastbound from Milne Row onwards, and also queues on the M56 eastbound Bowden through to Hale there. That's it from me for now. Back with the very latest in half an hour. Bye-bye.
Bone by Ancient Bone.
An amazing pair of burials.
Stone by Incredible Stone.
We've got a crown, and also these are representing jewels.
A really nice find.
Gem by Precious Gem.
These things are officially treasure.
Absolutely beautiful.
Discover our epic history, piece by piece.
Welcome to Digging for Britain.
Starts Wednesday at 9 on BBC 4.
Hello, very good morning. Welcome to Breakfast with Dan Walker and Louise Minchin.
It's fast approaching 8 o'clock. These are our headlines for you this morning. Prince Andrew faces calls to apologise to the victims of sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
A night of fiery clashes in Hong Kong as protesters try to stop police storming a university campus.
Pitching for the business vote, from apprenticeships to Brexit, party leaders look to persuade Britain's bosses that they are best placed to run the country.
England wrap up their Euro 2020 qualifiers with a dominant 4-0 win over Kosovo. They're now one of the top seeds for next summer's tournament.
Good morning. It's a cold and a frosty start to the day with some patchy mist and fog around, but all of that will give way to a mainly dry day with sunny spells. We're feeling chilly. I'll have more in 15 minutes.
Good morning. Monday, November the 18th is the date, and our top story is that Prince Andrew is facing calls to apologise to the victims of Jeffrey Epstein for his close association with the convicted sex offender.
Jeffrey Epstein took his own life while awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges. There's growing pressure for the Duke of York to testify under oath in the United States. Lawyers for Epstein's victims say they were almost completely ignored by the Prince in his interview with the BBC.
Do I regret the fact that he has quite obviously conducted himself in a manner unbecoming? Yes.
Unbecoming? He was a sex offender.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm being polite, in the sense that he was a sex offender. But no. Was I right in having him as a friend at the time? And bearing in mind this was some years before he was accused of being a sex offender. I don't think